Welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. My name is Huda London. This is for educational purpose only. This is the case of the Idaho quadruples. May the 4 victims rest in peace, condolence to the families, and may the correct justice be served. I hope all my subscribers, viewers, and everyone are doing well. And I wish everyone a pleasant and blessed weekend. I wanted to share with you all this interview that I came across. It was a year ago actually on Banfield. There's some interesting insights from a cold case investigator, police investigator, who was in charge of the Golden State Killer. His case, he was the man who arrested him. He's giving us insights to the Brian Christopher Kohlberger case. Found it interesting. This is for educational purpose only.
From a cell phone data trail to the multiple sightings of a white Hyundai Elantra to the sheath of a still missing knife that's believed to be the murder weapon. If Brian Kohlberger is in fact the killer, he seems to have given police pretty much a roadmap right to his front door. And this is a man who was working towards a PhD in criminology. Again, if he's guilty, what happened? Was he blinded by passion or frightened out of his wits, or did he want to get caught? I'm joined now by someone who has tackled these questions before in actually thousands of other cases, from Lacey Peterson to J.C. Dugard, but Paul Holes is most famous as the former cold case investigator who helped take down the Golden State Killer after decades on the loose. He is the author of the memoir Unmasked. Paul, I thought of you right away. We expected so little evidence in this affidavit, and it was a cascade of, frankly, mystery upon mystery, and yet we do have what we have. And what we have is that there was a bolo, a be on the lookout for white Elantra on November 25th. And I think it was the 29th that they knew that he had one, and they had his license with a description of him. They had so much so early. They had DNA on the snap of the knife sheath that day. I don't understand how it takes so long. I don't know your business, investigators, but help me.
Well, you have to understand that the affidavit is really a retrospective. And so the detective who's writing it is writing chronological order on when information came in. But when you start talking about this bolo for the white Hyundai Elantra, you have to understand that when they are initially investigating, they don't even have a license plate for this Elantra. So when they are now gathering data, going to the state's DMV and reaching out to other law enforcement agencies and their databases, they're getting thousands of bits of information of different registered owners of white Hyundai Elantras. Now, maybe Brian Kohlberger's name was in that list, but they didn't know that he was the killer at that point in time. At the same time, you have this parallel process going on with the lab processing evidence, and it takes time. Now, they shockingly had this knife sheath that was left behind that ultimately had Kohlberger's DNA on it, which is just, for me, it's just crazy that they had such great evidence. But it takes time to go through to process not only the DNA from this sheath, but they have mountains of other evidence in the case that the lab is probably working in batches. So it probably took some time, 7 days, 10 days, before they get their initial DNA results back. So they are juggling multiple things that take time, and ultimately the stars aligned. The DNA added up. They had a suspect who had a white Hyundai Elantra, and then as they dug further, circumstantial evidence really cemented the case.
I agree. It's fascinating, or more like, in my opinion, it's shocking, baffling, it leaves me perplexed to actually think that somebody who has a PhD in criminology, who has a psychology degree in bachelor, and who has a master's degree in crime and justice, who's a teacher assistant, who's one of the brightest students in his class, according to his professors. How could it be possible that he decided, in my opinion, let's say to start the crime from upstairs on the third floor? So he started from Maddie, may they rest in peace. He finished what he did upstairs with the two girls, came downstairs. Now picture this, are they trying to say that after he left his knife sheet under Maddie's duvet or linen sheet and all, are they trying to actually say that he took the K-bar that was dripping of red liquid and that he was in such a state that he walked down the steps with everything dripping, went, deleted the two people on the second floor, if you follow me, and then passed by DM and left out of the sliding door, all without a knife sheet. He would have noticed the blade of the knife sheet would have cut him. He would have noticed, although he's in some kind of state of mind, or just say as the adrenaline rush and all these things going on, he would have still seen and known and felt that he had a sharp blade. He couldn't have put it in his pocket because it would have cut him. So he would have noticed. I find it very convenient that the knife sheet was left on Maddie's bed. Let's not forget that this was a crime scene that many people walked into before law enforcement 911 was informed. In fact, 8 hours later, after the surviving roommates decided, for whatever reason, let's say they woke up from their shock and they decided, okay, now's the right time, we should call it in. But before we call it in, why don't we call Hunter Johnson? Because he can help us to open whatever's blocking Xana's door, which could have been he, allegedly. Is DM trying to tell her she didn't need to use the bathroom, the toilet? What was she doing? Was she using her room, the floor, as the toilet? I'm just asking. It's always important to follow not only somebody's behaviors and personalities and what they're capable of doing, but it's really important to use our common sense and follow our instincts. What is possible, what is impossible, and what is most likely not what somebody would do. I find it difficult to believe that Brian Christopher Koberger, who was a PhD student in criminology and crime and justice, a teacher, assistant, who's never had a crime in his life before, the states where he came from, Northampton, Pennsylvania, and all these other states, checked to see if there was any cold cases related to him. And guess what was the answer? Nothing. Zero. So they're trying to tell us that a person with PhD just decided, I'm going to go to a house full of students, party people, because it was a party venue. Even if there wasn't a party, he would have been aware that there were 5 people. He can see the lights, at least 4 people. He would have been aware that Xana and E was dating. Because think about it, when people usually pre-plan, God forbid, things like this, you have to be on point. You wouldn't want any hidden surprises because there are blocks all around the place. There are other fraternities, other places. People could have heard them yelling. This is not a sniper. This is not a person who unalives people for a living. Yes, I believe in SKs, like the Golden State Killer, Dalma, and all of them, Ted Bundy. But there's a difference. Why would someone do such a perfect quadruples? Not even 1, not even 2, not even 3, 4 people, a quadruple, and leave a knife sheath behind. If the surviving roommates called the police on time, like the correct way, if they didn't call Hunter Johnson before calling 911, especially if nobody came in the crime scene before the surviving roommates and the police, I would have definitely said it was Brian Christopher Coburn. But make it make sense. This doesn't make sense. Are they trying to say that Xana, who defended herself, would have been fighting and screaming and yelling? So would have the other 3 girls. Just say one was sleeping. Let's say Maddie was sleeping because I believe something was put in her mouth. What happened to the other 3 people? Didn't they yell? Is DM trying to say that she just watched and she didn't even notice that Brian Christopher Koberger has sea blue eyes? Clear blue eyes. That's a color you can't miss. I have brown eyes. Many people have brown eyes. Many people have different color eyes. Green, gray, blue. But the lighter your eyes are, I believe, the more it shows. She didn't even tell us if the person skin color was white, brown, dark skin, nothing. She didn't tell us the eye colors. She didn't tell us the ear shape. If you have big ears, because Brian does have big ears. She didn't tell us if the person was bald or if they had hair. But all DM could remember was he had bushy eyebrows. Isn't that strange? Why did they change the timelines? 2 a.m. is the hardest time for the Chapins. What happened at 2 a.m.? At the grub truck, we hear them yelling, Xana, Xana, Xana. That was at 2 a.m. Nobody saw Xana and E after 9. People saw Ethan. It's because he went to the party. The Betty Ball with these triplets. And with his sister's roommate. Nobody saw Xana. It's only her father who spoke to Xana at midnight. What happened? This knife sheet does not make sense. Make it make sense. I try and look at things in each and every way. And I would say one thing, which I've always said. If you go back, way back to my channel from the beginning, I never tried to change my words. I personally do not believe that BK is totally innocent. And I'll tell you why. Who would be willing to sit in prison for 2 years if you haven't committed these crimes? Why did BK come back to the house, according to the police, between 9:13 to 9:30? He didn't come right in front of the house, but his phone pinged behind, like driving behind the house. Why would he do that? Did he come to see if ambulances and police were there? It's possible that BK did it, but I don't believe he did it by himself. Because look at all the movements that were happening. Look at the Banfield boys. I showed you clearly that the tall boy, the tallest of them, his hand was red. It looked like he had blisters or cuts on his hand. It's not your palm, but above the palm. They all look strange, all three boys. Watch my other clips that I made yesterday about these three Banfield boys. And Saeed. All four of them need to be investigated. People keep on saying the Banfield boys are innocent and all that. Or it was just an alcohol stop. None of them were intoxicated to be pulled up. And I believe Saeed came to distract the cops. That's in my opinion. I'm trying to put up the timelining properly. But the more I see, the more I intend to expose. Because what I'm showing y'all is what is out there. It's up to us how we observe and watch pictures, zoom in, watch everything, watch the background, watch the conversations going on. Look what's right. Look what doesn't look right. I'm not here to accuse young people. I'm not here to accuse anyone. But I'm here to get the correct justice for these students. And we have to point out what we see. Some people may not like it. And some people may agree that it's the right thing as long as it has nothing to do with the families. Just like I mentioned about the Jay Slater case, I don't like where it is going. It's all right to find things and show what is out there on pictures and such things. It's not all right to make up stories about what could have happened to Jay Slater. If I started doing that, like True Crime 1111, I could have made 50 clips out there and put off of all my theories and ideas and start going into Potter paper, paper Potter, or all the rappers out in UK, or all the people out in the States. But that's not how you investigate a crime. You do it with facts and research. Part of facts is what the pictures they put out there. I didn't put out the body cam picture of Banfield. They put it out there. They put out the grub truck. And I want to thank them for doing that. Because those two clips, you can see my whole channel, the Banfield and grub truck is what I pay attention to most. Because I believe the pre-planning started from there. Period. Where did those three young men come from? Isn't it strange that there were three young men at the Banfield stop? In Idaho, Moscow, not Ashley Banfield, but Banfield. Wasn't it strange that there was three unidentified male DNAs that they were searching for? And there were 3 boys in the alcohol stop. There was car passing by. There was a car flashlight from 1122 Kings Road at exactly 3 a.m. Between 2:56 to 3 a.m. I've written all these timelines from day one on my notes. And I'm trying to build a proper timeline, not the timeline that we've been given in the affidavit. This is all my personal research, and I believe that 3 to 4 was the right timeline. They changed it for a purpose. Let's continue.
Evidence really cemented the case.
So that it's fascinating. I'm looking at this timeline, and I picked it all apart and made crazy notes looking through the affidavit. But November 29th, a Washington State University police officer gets an Elantra and takes it right to Kohlberger's apartment. He sees that there's this Elantra. The Bolo's been out for 5 days, or 4 days, and he sees this one at Kohlberger's apartment. So he can read the plate, and he says it's a Pennsylvania plate. If you were to look at that plate, you got a stop on August 21st where there is body cam video with a guy with bushy eyebrows. And we know from day one that Dylan Mortensen said the guy in my house that night had bushy eyebrows. Then you get a second body cam, and that's on October 14th. And that one was also, this one was also Washington State University officers, and there is body cam, presumably to show bushy eyebrows. So you have 2 videos there, plus a license, a driver's license that gives a description exactly of the person that Dylan Mortensen described to the police. But then it looks like they didn't ask for the phone records, the historical phone records of this suspect, because he'd given his phone number during one of those traffic stops, right? He gave them his phone number during the August 21st. They didn't start looking for historics on that until December 23rd. That to me is a bit of a surprise.
Well, and again, I think this is where, the confusion comes in as, you have this Washington State University cop who sees this white Hyundai Elantra. But this is one of many tips that law enforcement is fielding at the time. So until they have something that causes them to focus on Kohlberger, they're having to try to sort through all of these tips. Just because you have footage showing that you have a male that has bushy eyebrows, that isn't going to be sufficient to cause law enforcement to disregard all the other tips. This is where I believe that there's a likelihood that they had other more advanced DNA technology that was utilized that helped them focus in on Kohlberger. And then once they focused in based on that kind of technology, now they started adding things up. Oh, he drives a white Elantra. Now you get the body cam footage. Now you get the cell phone records, and the circumstantial case starts to cement itself.
I wonder if Brian Christopher Kohlberger was guilty and he knew he was involved in this crime, would he try to plead not guilty and defy the system and the Supreme Courts, or would he fight to prove his innocence? Because this is a man who's a PhD student in crime and justice. So it's one of the two, I believe. Either Kohlberger did it and he thinks he's bigger than the law and he wants to prove that by winning this case, or the second one is, I think he may be innocent. And if he's innocent, it makes sense that he doesn't want to take a plea deal, or he doesn't want to say he's guilty. Because if he's not guilty, he's not guilty. And I won't be surprised if they got the wrong person with everything that was going on that night.
Cell phone records, and the circumstantial case starts to cement itself.
Did you have a bit of a flashback to the Golden State Killer? Because I got to say, I heard in this affidavit that Brian Kohlberger applied for an internship at the Pullman, Washington Police Department just in the fall, just a couple months ago. So presumably it is sometime around the murder, right? The murder's on November 13th, and sometime in the fall he's applying to be an intern with the cops, and the Golden State Killer is, of course, a cop, and of course the familial DNA that you worked to find him. Did you have that flashback?
No, absolutely. There are parallels here with Kohlberger and D'Angelo. D'Angelo went to school and got his degree in criminal justice. He became an intern at Roseville PD, and then ultimately was a cop while he's committing fetish burgs and numerous sexual assaults in Northern California. Here, Kohlberger's doing the same thing. In addition, look at the crime that Kohlberger has been accused of. It's going into a residence at a time when the occupants are likely going to be asleep or falling asleep, and then killing them. That's exactly what the Golden State Killer was doing. I would not be surprised if Kohlberger actually studied D'Angelo and the Golden State Killer case, and then killing them. That's exactly what the Golden State Killer was doing. I would not be surprised if Kohlberger actually studied D'Angelo and the Golden State Killer case.
That is so creepy. Homicide detectives process the body. You said that they sometimes do not look for places where a sex fetish killer will mouth, and they won't think it's a sex crime. What did you mean by that?
Well, what I've seen across the nation, and even in California and jurisdictions next to mine, is when crime scenes are processed and the victims' bodies are processed, they often limit themselves from a sexual assault evidence standpoint to just collecting the 3 orifice swabs, oral, vaginal, rectal. And then if those are negative for just semen, and a pathologist says, I see no injuries to these orifices, they say, well, there's no evidence of sexual assault. But they often don't swab types of evidence that you can't see, such as saliva around the victim's mouth, in their hair, on their neck, on the intimate areas of their body, even down onto their toes or feet, where we sometimes get offender DNA and saliva. So this evidence is often overlooked. I don't know what they did in this case. Maybe they did a great job processing these victims' bodies. However, it wouldn't surprise me that due to the nature of Kohlberger's background and the types of victims he's going after, that there's a possibility that there's a sexual component to this crime that was missed.
So this is interesting. According to the detective investigator, cold case investigator, author of the book Unmask, of the Golden State Killer, the detective believes that they could have missed important evidence connected sexually. Trigger warning. That is possible. If they said, I heard they said that the autopsy came out negative, everything was clean. What about the toxicological reports? I heard that came out too. Clean. Or is everything on gag order, and is this just rumors going on social media? I would love to know what the toxicological results said and what all the results of the autopsy said. Then at least we would know what we're dealing with. I don't believe it was a sexual related crime. The reason I don't believe that is because I don't believe it was Kohlberger who did it by himself. Or possibly he may have not done it even. If it's the Sigma Chi fraternity boys and the boys that were amateur that were running around, if they did it, they wouldn't have had time to untie their pants even, or unzip their pants. Pardon me for my language. Because let's not forget it was 15 minutes. Within 15 minutes or 16 minutes, the 4 victims were unalived. So it was, I don't believe it was one person, I believe it was 3 people who came there and did this horrific crimes. The reason I say 3 people, 3 unidentified male DNAs. Where's it? Where is the 3 unidentified male DNAs that was found in the house? There was 1 glove that was found outside. I see one of the Banfield boys with 1 glove on. 1 was found on the Good Vibes, because I believe a fight broke out in the living room, because the hand print and the fingerprints was on the Good Vibes picture. So it looked like somebody was fighting and they must have hit or tried to get support from the wall itself or fell on the wall. Wasn't there a cigarette butt even found there? And then you have the shoe print, the Vans shoe print in front of Dylan's room. You have one of the boys in Banfield with a glove. You have one with Van shoes. You have Said with Van shoes. You have Said watching criminal concerning pictures that look like Kaylee was sitting allegedly. Because her parents said she was sitting, and that's exactly what I found. So that is not even alleged when you look at the picture Said was watching. So maybe the fact that it's not a sexual crime can possibly point the fact that it could be students who are out for revenge and hate, allegedly. Cobra has bushy eyebrows, but his eyebrows are too deep in. He has more like sunken eyes. Let me show you what bushy eyebrows are for me. The one on the right, pay attention to him with these hands crossed. Look at his hand. And I'm looking at it from far away without zooming in. Look at the hand that is crossed, the one that's above. He has red injuries, and you can see actually a bump on his hand. It's a fresh one. Let's look at his eyebrows. Now that is bushy eyebrows, although his eyebrows look like they're neatly done. Or he has good genetic. He just has eyebrows that are lined up. But that's bushy eyebrows for me. I wouldn't say very bushy, but quite bushy. Let me zoom into him. I wanted to show you his hand again. Now you tell me. You'll see? I'm just zooming in. You can do that with their cameras, with their smartphones. Now you tell me what is wrong with his hand. I used to always wonder for 2 years almost, why do these 3 young men look weird? Why do they look like they've just seen a ghost? Pay attention to his hand. Let me go further. Pay attention to his hand. Where did they come from? Where were they headed to? I keep on saying the Sigma Chi fraternity. It's not only the Sigma Chi fraternity. These are fraternity boys too. Where were you going? Why does the hand look injured? 2:54 or 55 is when they were stopped by the police. Mary and Kaylee's last call to Jack D was at 2:52. Let's calculate. Let's do our timings. Why does this one have glasses on? On a Saturday night, 3 a.m. in the morning. I know when people are intoxicated, they do weird things, but this is a new one. And right in front of the undercover cops. No one's telling them to put their hands straight, take your hands out of your pocket, take off your glasses. No. Take off your hoodie, mister. Nobody's saying that. These undercover cops were too lenient to them. I'm a mental health counselor, licensed mental health counselor. I'm not a police officer. And I respect police officers. I respect them because they protect us. But look at this. Certain things we're not supposed to keep quiet. Sorry, guys. My son was talking to me. Just hold on. I wanted to show you. Look at the bump from there. Let me bring it closer. I don't know what you all see, but I'm not liking what I see. How could the police miss this? They said everyone at the Banfield were innocent. Nothing to watch. Go up, Chuck. Nothing to watch there too. This all needs to be investigated properly. Please like, share, and subscribe.